Welcome to Yeukai Business Show, UK's premier business show where we feature business thought leaders, high achievers, and industry experts. Today's episode is brought to you by World Outsourcing Solutions Limited, a company that specializes in helping executive business owners with virtual assistant services and business growth systems. Here's your host, Yeukai Karajagi.
Hey, welcome back to this very special episode. And today, I know I say it's a very special day, but today is really, really special because I have a dear friend of mine I'm going to be interviewing on the show. And if you want to catch him out right in the middle of where he's showing his expertise, you want to join us on our Clubhouse rooms because I have this gentleman as my co-moderator on Clubhouse, and we always have a blast. Now, you're wondering, who is this man you're talking about? It's my dear friend, Niket. Niket, thank you so much for joining me here on this episode.
Always a pleasure.
Yes. Now, listen, if you've been playing around with the idea of getting started with your podcasting, or you want to scale your podcasting, or even you want to monetize your podcasting, you're in the right place because Niket has done all these three in the last 9 months. In fact, he's doing it in a style. So I thought we will bring him on the show today so we can cover what he considers the 7 internal podcasting principles that will guarantee your success if you want to do any of these 3 things. So once again, what are those 3 things? You want to start, you want to scale, or you even want to monetize your podcasting. Niket, I know we've talked before, but for those who are yet to meet you, tell us a bit about yourself, what you've done, and what you're doing.
Sure enough. So I'm a mechanical engineer by qualification, and I have done my master's in international business management. After that, I did my entrepreneurship with Wharton Online. I'm a licensed practitioner for Carl Jung's work of MBTI. Then I'm a DISC certified professional. I'm a Saville license holder. I'm a part of the global leader of future assessments. And apart from that, I have around 26, 27 certifications in different areas of management. So I'm perpetually a student of management, and I'm an executive coach. So I do a lot of work with CEOs. Post my college days, I joined a company which was into information technology. I started off as a customer support engineer, moved into sales, then I moved into product management, then I moved into operations, and finally I became an entrepreneur 22 years ago, where I discovered my passion and I wanted people to change their behaviors to win. And that's exactly what I do today. I just focus on behavioral modifications. And then, of course, it took me into the journey of podcasting, which we will talk as we move through this process.
Amazing. And one of the things I love about how you've structured your entrepreneurship is you now have got other people running your 3 companies, and you just go in there and do what you need to do. But you have fired yourself, so to speak. You would, like we like to say around here, you replace yourself, but the business keeps growing. What an amazing thing to accomplish. What's your secret?
Yes, thank you. So what happened was, like any other entrepreneur, I wanted to control my businesses. But then I realized that I was more of an inventor, I was more of a creative person. And every time I would get into operations, it would drain my energy and it would kill my creativity. Fortunately, also, I have people in my organization who control my organizations. They're dear friends of mine. I've known them for the last 15, 20 years. One person has been my client, and the other one has been my colleague in my corporate life. And therefore, there was a chemistry that existed, there was a trust that existed, and it became very easy. But I have learned over a period of time that if you want to grow, you must have a set of people around you whom you trust. They're committed to you, you're committed to them. And then you can do what you want to do, and they can do what they want to do. So we kind of complement each other's strengths and weaknesses. Not that we don't have our conflicts, but we have creative conflicts and we are able to thrash out our situations. Also, I could do that, and this is something that all podcasters and all entrepreneurs must know. I have invested in technology so much. There are analytic dashboards. There are my office is a studio. There's so much of technology around that technology has empowered everybody. Information moves. Nobody really has to take any effort to ensure that the information moves. So empowerment is high, ownership is high, there's free flow of information, and we work on a fundamental that nothing should be hidden in the organization and with anybody else outside of the organization. So feel free to ask me anything. I'll be happy to share everything that I know.
Yes, and I know this to be true because you don't hide anything. Like when we are on that clubhouse room, you share some of the amazing secrets that I think, if it was anybody there, they would charge for what you reveal, but you are generous with your knowledge. I love that about you. And of course, as a result of that generosity, we connected. Tell my listeners here how we got connected and how we ended up working together.
Yeah, of course. So my entry into Clubhouse was more of a coincidence where somebody just told me, and I downloaded the app, and I had a lot of followers already there because I've trained around 200,000 leaders all over the world. So the moment they saw my name flash, I think somebody just pushed his finger through, and I was in. So it was a matter of few seconds before I came into Clubhouse. But then while I was trying to understand what Clubhouse is all about, like any other person, I was feeling a little lost in the beginning. And so I'm a feeling guy, I'm an intuitive guy. So I saw your room and I just felt that I should enter the room, and I entered the room. And when I entered the room, I felt like raising my hand and talking to you. I hesitated, but then I realized as a behavioral scientist that hesitation is normal. I overcame that hesitation, and there we went. I mean, we just spoke to each other, and the chemistry just happened. And after that, probably, we've done so many shows, and I think it's just gelled very well. So that's the whole thing. That's how we met.
Amazing. And one thing for you, if you're listening, life is about collaboration. And if you want to get there quicker, figure out how to connect with people. And it's amazing what could happen now with Niket. We are working on different projects, which if you want to know about, you can reach out to either Niket or myself, or just click the link below this audio to be taken to some of the projects that we are working on. Very, very exciting. I think we're going to talk about one of them here toward the end of our time together. But Niket,
Yes.
one of the things that you are a master at is podcasting. Before we talk about how you do it, tell us about how big podcasting is in India and what the future is like.
India is currently at a stage where it is going to explode as far as social audio is concerned. Multiple reasons. One, we have a massive young generation available in the country, a lot of young people floating around, and they are all hooked onto devices. And India being a technology country, it is normal for even a 3 year or a 4 year old to get cracking on any of the digital devices. If you notice, even the senior folks are hooked on to podcasts, they're watching videos. So there's humongous consumption of content right now that's happening in India. Also, you must understand that since India is around 1 billion population, it's not easy to really create your careers here because there's massive competition. India is also a land of learning where learning is a core value. Now, what happened during the COVID time was that the learning suffered, and India is used to a lot of learning and development. So people hooked onto podcasts. I realized that. So even if you go through any of the research material by any of the top consulting companies, you would get to know that India is now the next focus area for podcasting. Uh, US was there, Europe was there, China was doing very well, Japan was doing very well, and now India is going to be the next market. So I think one thing that I want to mention here is any of the podcasters, any of those folks who are into development and marketing of content, if India and the destination as a strategy to India is not a part of you, you're missing out on a big story in your life for sure. So that's about India.
Amazing. And your story, you launched your podcast earlier on, and it has taken a huge turn. Very briefly, tell us about what happened and what's going on right now.
So I'll tell you what, I normally go for a morning walk every day and I call it my idea walk. One of the reasons I enjoy my morning walks is because I get a lot of intuitive ideas. And while I was one day on a morning walk, suddenly a thought dawned onto me. And I just told myself, I have got my blogs in, they're doing very well. I've done my videos, they're doing extremely well. We're getting lots of hits worldwide across continents. I had coached so many people, like I said, around 200,000 plus people. I'm a brand in the country. So I felt that the only thing I have not really experimented with is audio. And therefore, I started researching about audio, and then I hit upon the concept of podcasts. And quite honestly, I didn't know much about podcasts when I really got on to starting off my podcasts. But I liked the idea. I liked the idea because I felt, and a lot of my clients also told me when I was doing my, post idea sessions with my clients, they said, "Hey, look, after your coaching process gets over, we lose access to your thoughts, we lose access to the wisdom that you talk about, and therefore, can you do something by which you generate nuggets which are 5 minutes, 6 minutes, so that whenever we have time available on hand, we will be able to listen to them?" And I liked it. And then I thought that if that's what people want, I don't want to interview people. I want to do a solo show. So what I did was I started working on the concept of 6 minute podcasts. And I also felt during the research that I was doing, I got an insight that a lot of senior leaders don't really have time to go beyond 6 minutes. That's their span of attention.
That's right.
So I started working on the concept. I started working on the concept, which were typically the questions that leaders used to ask me during my workshops. So that became a ready reckoner for them. That was my season one. And season one, I exhausted all my questions. And then I went into season two, season three. Now I have done up to season 10. They're already in line for publication. The line is on till October end, which is around now 6 months hence. And there are podcasts that I'm doing, possibly one podcast every day. And I made it a point that my podcasts get on to the desired devices and portals on every Tuesday, Thursday, and on Sunday. So that's my timing, and I never miss my timing. So that's my story about how I really got into podcasts. It's an experiment that I started, and it became successful. That's it.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. What I love about that story is you looked at what was happening and you listened into what your clients want, and then you took an action. And of course, it was a game changer. Now you are regular there, adding value to people. And this is a lesson to anyone listening, that if you adapt what's going on, you will have success. We want to dive deep, Niket, if we may, at
Yes.
this point, on the 7 internal podcasting principles, which I know
Yes.
you have discovered during this process. Why is it
Yes.
important to be aware of these principles?
Okay. So when I started co-hosting shows with you, when you kindly made me the moderator alongside you, I realized there were certain specific questions which is stemming from the basic fundamental wisdom of podcasting. And I always have a habit. After my workshops, I sit down and I pen down the questions that participants tend to ask me. I did the same when I was on your shows. I used to sit down after the show and pen down the typical questions that came. And I realized there was a thread in those questions. There was a thread in the conversation that I was doing with them also. And it's my normal habit that anything that I do on a repetitive basis, I ultimately convert that into a business model.
Excellent.
And then I sat down and I started working out the eternal principles that would go for any podcaster. It took me around a day to really come across these, and then I spoke to a few people where the truths are okay, where the fundamental principles really work. And now these 7 principles are my guiding principles, and I'm happy to share it with everybody because I believe one thing: if you're a podcaster, you're bringing about a huge difference to the world around you. You're solving a problem, you're touching lives of people. And if you're doing that, and if these principles of mine really help you, I'll be more than happy for sure. So let's go ahead.
Amazing. I did apply this, and you are onto something here, and I can see them working out in my podcasting, having done it just close to 5 years now, that, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I do. So you manage to articulate what I already do, what is somewhat intuitive to me. You bring it out to the open, so to speak. And
Yes.
I'm so excited about this. So you are in a very good place if you're just getting started to be learning these principles. And if you're already in the business, you might want to take a time and reflect upon them, see how they relate to you, how can they be of value to you, and what can you do to make whatever you're doing very, very effective. Again, the same principles are works in other areas of life. So if podcasting is not your thing, and you're working on something that is important, figure out how you can adopt these principles into what you're doing. So let's dive in, Niket.
Yes.
What?
Let me take you through each principle, and then we will have a conversation around those principles. You
Amazing.
met a lot of people, and you can pose questions, and I'll answer the questions around each principle. Is that okay?
That is amazing. So let's go with the first one.
So let's go with the first one. And I mentioned in that that our universe is an ever-evolving phenomena of human-centric solutions and evolution of consciousness. Now, let's understand one thing. When I hit upon this principle, I was looking at what are podcasters and what are creative people, what are entrepreneurs really doing in this entire story of universe. Now, I've done a deep research on what happens in the universe because there is a spiritual side to me also. And in India, by the way, everybody does dwell with spirituality to some level or the other. We're not discussing religion here, we're discussing scientific discovery and understanding of the universe. Now, if the universe is an intelligence, the phenomena of the intelligence is that it is ever evolving. Now, how does the intelligence evolve? It evolves only when we solve certain problems. If we are not solving problems, we are not using our intelligence. And as we solve problems, we generate wisdom. And if that wisdom is being generated, that's where the collective consciousness of this planet is evolving. So, how does this work at the level of podcasting? Each podcaster, whether he or she is aware or not aware, is definitely solving some problem. Now, if you are into entertainment, you are solving a problem where people are stressed out and they're looking at releasing their stress. So you're doing that. If you are a education genre person, what are you doing? You're helping people to become successful by imparting them knowledge. So there also you're solving a problem. If you are using real-time news, there also you're solving a problem because people want to know what's happening around them.
Yes.
So the whole idea of the principle number one was that people have to understand that they're actually playing a role in the evolution of this planet. And when I look back at every time I sat down to record my podcast, I used to actually tell myself, I am at the center of the earth. There are people all over, and I want this message to go across to people all over. And some magic used to happen because that visualization of being at the center of the universe absolutely changes the way you deal with your podcast also. So that's the first principle. Any questions on that?
Amazing. You know what? I totally agree with that. And this helps me even when I'm pricing my project or whatever I'm doing with my podcasting. I know I'm adding value. And the law of marketplace states that you are paid in direct proportion to the value you bring to the marketplace. If I bring
Yes.
a value, my income, it will also goes up. So, knowing this fact that I'm part of this amazing, amazing solution, it just gives me confidence. And I'm sure, if you are, as the listener, taking this on, you are beginning to realize how important it is of what you're doing. But we can move on to the second one, Niket.
Yes. And before I do that, I also want to mention one thing. If your podcast isn't being used or maybe consumed by people, you are not solving a problem. You might want to just reflect and see, can you reorient your podcast and start solving a problem? And I tell you, it will reach destinations which even you don't think about.
Yes.
So let's move to the second principle. And I mentioned in the second principle, our podcast must be a manifestation of our authentic passion, a sense of purpose, which is a bespoke solution. Now, it's very interesting. On the Clubhouse, most of the podcasters that I met, I found them to be authentic. So if you're doing well in the 21st century, it's extremely important in the digital world to be authentic, because if you are not authentic, the voice itself does not warm any hearts. Now, if your voice isn't reaching the hearts of the people, that's because you're trying to do something which is not you.
Yeah.
You're trying to imitate somebody which is not a part of your authentic passion. Now, how do you discover your authentic passion? Just ask yourself this one question. What's that one thing I would do for free for people? And I know this is a question that a lot of people find difficult to answer, but just sit down, relax, ask yourself this question a couple of times, maybe more. What's that one thing I would want to do for free? And that is your passion. So when I ask myself this question before podcasting, what's that one thing I would want to do for free? A thought came to me that I must spread knowledge that I have, and that I must do for free. And that became my sense of purpose. And I also realized that the sense of purpose in this entire grand story of the universe is so powerful. It is such a razor sharp energy. It's like the sunlight moving through the lens and burning the paper off. That's the power of the sense of purpose. And that sense of purpose is so unique to you. It's aligned to your talents, it's aligned to the individuality of a person, that your podcast actually become bespoke solutions. They're highly customized solutions. Now if you are attempting to do what the market tells you to do, and if that's not in line with your passion, your voice is not going to reach people. And I think the last thing I want to say about the principle number 2 is, even after the person leaves the planet, what remains is the person's voice. And I think singers are testimony to this. We've had great singers, and after they were no longer there, their voice still remains. And I think every podcaster must realize this, that the voice will remain for sure. And that's my principle number 2.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. I'm loving this, and I'm sure our audience here are loving this one. Let's move on to principle number 3.
3. So, principle number 3, I have mentioned that passion creates unique coincidences. Persist with focus. I am a firm believer of coincidence. In fact, two of us have met sheerly through coincidence. There was no plan to it. I think on the previous evening, we didn't even know that we were going to meet. And that's the sheer power of coincidence. Now, if you're operating with a sense of purpose, that thought itself is so powerful that it starts creating coincidences. Now, every time people argue with me on coincidences, I always ask them this question: how many times in your life have you thought about somebody and you've met? How many times in your life you wanted something and it happened for you? And people say, yeah, it's happened quite a few times. And I said, if it has happened quite a few times, why do we want to call it a coincidence? There must be some process to it. And I have discovered in my life as an entrepreneur, I have never gone and asked for business to anybody. I have just mentioned the brand somewhere on a piece of paper. I have written down the brand. At times, I have drawn the logo of the brand. And through sheer coincidence, I have met the people. So I'm a firm believer of coincidences. Now, your podcasts, if they're driven by your passion, you must understand that they have all the energy available to create the coincidences. Now, what are the coincidences that are going to happen? Your podcasts are going to land up into the ears of some people who are influential on this planet by mere accident. You didn't decide to do it, it just happened. And they loved your podcast because somewhere your podcast touched their lives, somewhere the podcast made a difference to them, and they became your advocates of podcasts. Now, this is so interesting that the voice and the audio, the way it gets consumed, you don't know who's listening to you. And if you don't know who's listening to you, they know who you are because your picture is there. They can track you, they find you on the social media. And the real test of your podcast is, if you're at the airport, if you're in a restaurant, and if people come and say, hey, you know what? You're the guy and we are listening your podcast. I think you've reached people. Now, why should you persist with focus? Because a lot of podcasters want miracles to happen, that the moment they start podcasting and they've done their first podcast, they start thinking about their downloads. It doesn't work like that. You must persist with focus. You must persist with a thread, because it takes time for a human being to form a habit. And once your podcast becomes a habit, they wait for it. And that's my fundamental principle number 3, that wait for the coincidences and keep persisting on the idea that you believe in.
Amazing. You know what? I know this to be true. The number of times I had people calling me say, Yeukai, and I'm thinking, what's going on there? And they say, oh, yeah, we've been listening to your podcast. And I think, oh, that's good. They know me, but I don't know them. It's like, it's just a real moment. It's like,
Absolutely.
I have to
Absolutely.
recollect myself and think, okay, this person knows a whole lot about me than I do about them. And
Yes.
they love me. You can tell. And this is funny, actually. I was in town not too long ago. Someone said, I have to buy you a drink. And I thought, okay, let's go and get that drink. Thing. But it was a direct result of them listening to the podcast
Yes.
where we are helping business owners. So I ended
Yes.
up having a free meal and a friend we're still friends up to now
Yes.
as a direct result of that. So this is absolutely the truth. So stay.
And internet works on the fundamental principle of exchange of gratitude.
Yes.
People pay you back, and that's where, I've always mentioned that podcasters will definitely raise their monetization, because you're doing so much for the world around you that it is going to pay back to you for sure.
Yes, amazing. Absolutely amazing. So, if you are thinking of starting your own podcast and you just want to know how to get started or how to scale or how to monetize, there will be a link below. We have set aside for the next 48 hours. Is time slot that you can book a free strategy with me, and I can answer any question you may have. I'm happy to help you to demonstrate that I will help you with this. And should you qualify, we may invite you to become one of our customers and help you on the journey of podcasting. I'm excited about this because it has transformed my life, and Niket's life, and many of my colleagues. So we want you to enjoy the same joy. Let's move
Yes.
on to the next point.
So that's the podcasting principle number 4. And I mentioned in that knowledge is power, share it generously, and analytics is the key. You must democratize your content. So there are 3 pieces to this. Let me go piece by piece.
Yes.
In the 21st century, knowledge is absolute power. Now, as a podcaster, you got to be a thought leader in the area that you're podcasting. That means you must be well versed with your topic. You must research. You must be a student for that. For instance, my podcasts are all about management stuff for CEOs. And interestingly, I made them for the CEOs, but I soon realized that B school students started consuming these podcasts also. And one of the students actually came and told me, you know what? I cleared my exam because of your podcasts.
Wow.
So this is powerful. Now, knowledge is power in the 21st century. It was never so before. And in the 21st century, the knowledge in certain sectors is probably doubling every week, if not every week, every 3 days. And pharmaceutical is one example of that. Now, if you have the knowledge, the principle of knowledge is that you must never keep it with yourself, because then it doesn't grow. Knowledge is so powerful that you must share it generously. You must have to be absolutely open. If you're not sharing your knowledge, you must understand that you still need to build more on knowledge, because you're not still secure about what you're doing.
That's
So
right.
knowledge is to be given to people, and while you give that knowledge to people, you must also have your analytics in place, so that you know that in each city of any particular country on this planet, who is consuming what, and are you offering that knowledge or no. So in my office, I have plasmas here where we're tracking what is the content that is being generated in every city on this planet. And then we check, my team checks whether that content we have already created, as long as it is about management. And the moment we realize that we've not done that, we immediately move in, we conduct a research, we study, and then we release either a video or an e-learning program, or we do a podcast. So that's how our entire system works. So I think each podcaster must realize that analytics is key. Invest in portals that offer analytics to you, and if they're not offering analytics, don't invest. But yet, if you've invested in a portal that does not offer analytics, please do talk to third parties. Take the analytics in.
Amazing.
Democratization of content is another principal driver of internet. Your content, you must allow it to be consumed by the world. Empower your consumers. Let them decide what they want to consume, what they do not want to consume, and do talk to them and find out what do they want, because once your podcast becomes a habit, they crave for more information. And when they crave for more information, you must know what information is required. But I think overall the internet operates on a simple principle, that the consumer is the king, And the consumer decides how, where, how they want to consume the content. And therefore, it should be available on your mobile phones, it should be available on your laptops, on your pads, on smart speakers. Just ensure that any portal that you're on, the content is available across so that you empower your consumers to pick up any of the devices and consume the content. That's my principle number 4.
Amazing, amazing. Let's move nicely into the ecosystem, which I think ties nicely into what we're talking about.
Yes. The principle number 5, I mentioned that ecosystem is critical to scale in this borderless world. Now, I want to talk about borderless world. I'm fascinated with the idea of Kenichi Omayo. He wrote a book called The Borderless World around 30, 40 years ago, and he could envision the times that we are living in right now. Now, what is this borderless world all about? It is about the geographies and the boundaries do exist, but in the internet, there is no boundary, there are no barriers. Everything just moves simply. There is no obstruction anywhere. That's one thing that we have to understand, that content, e-commerce moves seamlessly across borders. So, in order to ensure that whatever we do succeeds in this borderless world, it is required that we build an ecosystem. Now, what is an ecosystem for a podcaster? One is obviously the technology that you're using. That means the hardware that you're using. So whatever is the type of the podcast that you're doing, ensure that you invest in the hardware which is the best in line. And hardware obviously has a phenomena where it gets obsolete very fast. So one of the hazards of doing anything in technology is that the obsolescence level is very high and you have to keep reinvesting. If you're not using the latest technology, you're not going to be really successful in this world. So one is the hardware. The second is the software as a service. So when we are going onto the portals, pick up the correct portal. Do your research before you decide which portal to go for, because each portal does good for a particular genre. And now you have to decide whether it's befitting for you. Thirdly, your podcast must be backed by blogs, by videos, by interviews like this. It must be available through multiple areas. For instance, a lot of people call me up and say, "Can we just put your blog on our site?" And I say, "Why not? Please go ahead and do that." Also, in the ecosystem, you have to ensure that everything plugs in. So I have my own WordPress site. It's niketkarajagi.com. And on the WordPress site, my videos, around 400 publications of mine, the podcasts, the blogs, everything just comes onto one platform, which is niketkarajagi.com. And I have massive traffic coming there. And then, like I said, you empower your consumers. So if they want to watch only my videos, they go onto my Vimeo channel. If they want to only consume my podcast, they would go on the Apple Podcast or maybe Spotify or wherever they wish to go. And if they want to consume my blogs, they remain on the niketkarajagi.com. If they want to consume my publications, again, they are available on niketkarajagi.com. So we build a complete digital ecosystem. And what happens then is that people come into that ecosystem, and I learned it from Apple. Apple has created such an amazing ecosystem that you just can't leave the system.
That's right.
They have got iTunes, they've got the cloud-based podcast system, they've got the apps, and that's exactly what we've done. So once people enter our ecosystem, it gets very difficult to exit it. And that's what my principle number 5 is.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. And as a business owner, you may want to include this in your strategy and how you doing your business. This doesn't not only apply to podcasting, but also in business in general. And I know you love systems that helps create more money for you and creates freedom for you. And the ecosystem approach truly helps you to get there. Let's dive on to what most people really wants to know, that is the monetization part.
Yes, the principle number 6. Now, you can't practice the principle number 6 unless you have cultivated the principle number 5, because ecosystem helps you to monetize. If you look at these principles, they're going in a flow. Unless you do 1, you can't do 2. Unless you do 2, you can't do 3. Then you can't do 4, 5. Now we're at 6. Monetization is correlated to complexity of the problem we solve, and the productization is its essence. Now, there are 2 parts to this. The money that you earn is based on the complexity of the problem that you solve.
That's right.
The more complex the problem, the better the monetization. So if your sponsors are not willing to pay you much, or maybe if the advertising revenue is not high, that means you're not really solving a complex problem. Now, if you're not solving a complex problem, don't worry. All you have to do is you have to increase the spread. However, if you're solving a complex problem, then what is happening is in the niche, there are certain sponsors who will come to you because you are the niche person and they're going to pay you a lot more. But I go beyond that. And a message that I want to give podcasters today is, why do you want to depend only on sponsors? Why do you want to depend only on advertising revenue? Why can't you productize your podcast like I have done? All the podcasts that I created, right now they're 100 plus, but I'm planning around 500 plus overall in the field of management and leadership. Now, obviously, it's going to be very difficult for people to handle those 500 podcasts. So, what have I done? I have picked up each season and converted it into an e learning program. And each e learning program now is bundled in a bouquet, and I'm allowing that bouquet to be consumed by people at 9.99 US dollars. Now, imagine there are 10 courses right now. Tomorrow, there'll be 20, maybe 30 later. And if I'm going to offer to you at $9.99, I've created a blue ocean because of productization. Because ultimately, there will come a time when the course will be available to you at 10 cents. Now, can you believe this? That a learning course is available to 10 cents. Now, maybe you're rich and you don't really want 10 cents, but there are people in so many countries who cannot afford education, who cannot afford management lectures. They cannot meet people who are worthy to be met. For them, this 10 cents is going to be big time. And I want to ensure that my productization process moves deep into every country and it reaches every person, because I have a vision that my products, my podcasts must get consumed by every person on this planet. And if you're rich, 10 cents doesn't matter at all. So obviously, you can just subscribe to it and take it. So that's my principle number 6.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. If you're getting a lot of value from this, I want to invite you to do two things for us if you can. Go to iTunes and review this recording. And also, the second one, if you want to learn these principles and you want further support, perhaps as a startup podcaster or somebody who is looking to scale or even to monetize, I want you to do something. You are going to book a strategy call where I will be there to support you in future. We will have classes where we will be helping you on an ongoing basis as to how you too can start monetizing your knowledge and also help others do exactly the same thing. So, two things: review this recording on iTunes and also book a strategy call that will be linked to this link, and we'll be happy to serve you. I don't know about you, Niket. This knowledge has to get to as many people as we possibly can, right?
Oh, I will be extremely happy, Yeukai, if people revisit this particular interview and they become trainers on these 7 principles. I don't want to charge a dime for this at all. I want to give it away for free, because if podcasters can benefit, if entrepreneurs can benefit, and if this can become your own do it yourself, train the trainer, I'll be very happy. Go ahead. You don't even need to give me a credit for that. You can do whatever you wish to do. You want to tweak these principles, tweak them, no problem at all. And these principles are available as a link in any case for anybody who wants to consume it. Just search for the 7 Eternal Podcasting Principles by Niket Karajagi. And I have also given a link to you, Yeukai. You want to put it on alongside this particular interview. I have no problems at all. You can do that too.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. And as we're coming toward the end of our time here together, let's dive on to the principle number 7, which
the most important one and the last one. And you know where I learned this principle? I learned this principle when I was on a flight and I was sitting next to a guy who sells horses for Derby. Now, it's a very interesting story. I must tell you this story, and then the principle number 7 becomes very easy. So I was traveling, and there was this person sitting next to me who was owning a stud farm. And I normally get chatting with people every time I'm on a flight. And there was a time when I used to really, really travel hard. And I'm sure that would again start happening because I virtually live out of a suitcase. Obviously, we are talking to each other during COVID time when flights aren't moving. Now, this gentleman comes and sits next to me, and I got chatting with him, and I asked him, "What do you do?" He said, "I sell horses." So I said, I didn't know much about horses. So I said, "Well, okay, you sell horses, fine." He said, "No, you must understand what I do." I said, "Okay, please tell me." And India, typically, a flight is around 1 hour, 50 minutes, 2 hours, 2.5 hours. So that's quite a bit of time that you can chat around. And I get my stories and my creative juices there. So he said, I go and I meet a person and I ask them, which derby do you want to win? Then he tells me, this is the particular derby that I want to win. This is the particular race that I want to win. Now he tracks the pedigree of the horses that have won that race. And then the horses are brought together and they mate, and then the pony happens. And then that pony is nurtured to win the race. And I was like, wow, I didn't know this. But he said, that's not the end of the story. He said, I sell my horses for millions of dollars. And I said, come on, now how do you sell your horses for millions of dollars? And how do you spot your people who are going to buy it? So he said, now this is the important part, and that's what my principle number 7 is. He said, every time I'm at the race course, there are a lot of people who are yelling, shouting, shrieking, getting excited. And then I spot one man in the show there who is sipping away his champagne, quietly sitting in a corner, watching the race, and there is no turbulence on the face, and he's my man, or she's my person whom I'm going to sell the horse. And I said, what's about them? He said, anybody who's a winner, anybody who's an achiever, does not want to be spotted. They are sitting quiet, they're enjoying it because they care less whether they're losing money or they're winning money. They're just there for the joy of it. And that was a moment of epiphany for me. And that's my principle number 7. World bets only on winners who compete with themselves and not others. This is the first part. Now, I think most of the entrepreneurs, podcasters, start competing with other podcasts. Don't do it. Your passion, your bespoke podcast, it's your stuff. Compete with yourself. Once you've done your first podcast, sit down, find out where do you think you went wrong. Your second podcast will be better. Then your third podcast will be much better. But I think in this creative journey that I've been in the last 22 years, I've been in the digital process. I have realized that no digital content is ever perfect. It's an ongoing journey. You just have to keep reflecting. So compete with yourself. Be with the winners only. Don't go with losers. Now, why should you be with winners? If winners are consuming your podcast, they are your influencers. They are the ones who are going to move your podcast for sure. Spot them early. Now, this is something that I've done in my life. I am always, after the story I told you, I am always looking for people who are winners. And being a behavioral scientist, it helps me a lot because I can spot winners very easily. I go, I talk to them, I build my relationships with them. I nurture that relationship because once you spotted them and once they relate with you, you move to the next orbit just because of this one person that you met. So I think my principle number 7 is the philosophy of my life. I am on a continual journey of spotting winners. And when I spot them, a lot of times I don't even charge for what I do for them because I want them to become my advocates. I want them to become the devotees of my work. And that happens. And that's the principle number 7.
That is amazing, absolutely amazing. One of the things I love about you is you are a man of your word. And I remember when we met together and we were deciding on how we will be working together, you made us, well, we won't go into all that, but it made me realize how what kind of a person you are and in identifying who you want to work with. And I absolutely love that. But maybe actually, would you talk about how you spot your winners, to do business or to collaborate with? What process do you use other than the one you have mentioned?
So I think I'm at an advantage because I'm a trained behavioral scientist. So, firstly, I observe their word patterns. If the communication is negative in nature, if they're only talking about problems, they're not your winners. But if they're talking problems and they're talking solutions, they are winners for sure. Because what are they doing in the conversation? They're not only discussing a problem, they're also discussing a solution.
Yes.
They have stories to tell you. One thing that I have realized about winners is they have so many stories to tell you that they've dealt with a lot of problems, and they've just emerged out of it. They have gone deep into the problem, probably they lost a lot of money, but they have come out of it, and that's their story. The other thing is, they just don't remember their failures. Now this is very interesting. I think a lot of winners that I have trained today, every time I ask them, can you tell me a couple of places where you think you failed? And they said, well, failure is normal. You ask me about my successes, I can tell you, but don't ask me about failures because I don't remember them. Now this is amazing. And people who are losers, they're lost in the world of their failures, and those failures are actually defining. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy for them, because they are constantly anchored to their failures. They only see failures. And I think because winners are constantly anchored with their wins, they only see wins all around. I'm sure winning and losing is happening to everybody, but it's how you think. So I observe their pattern. I observe their non-verbal language. There's an element of confidence in them. I look into their eyes. Their eyes shine. You can spot wisdom in their eyes. There's something about their face. And one last thing, everything that I've noticed about winners, they're so humble, they don't even know that they're successful. And you have to go and tell them, do you know you are actually successful? And they look at you and say, yeah, I don't know. I'm just doing my bit.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the way to spot them.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. My dear friend Niket, sharing generously the 7 internal podcasting principles that can help you scale and monetize your business or your podcast venture. And I hope you have gotten tons of value from this audio. And if you want to learn more, please, there will be a strategy link below. And also you can access a lot of our training free, just like Niket has said. With that said, do you have any final word here, Niket, for those?
Yes, I do have. And my final word is, first learn to give. Unless you give, you will not get. Unfortunately, the world works on an opposite paradigm. They first want to get and then they want to give. That's a wrong model to follow. So I end by saying, learn to give. And the more you give, the more you get. The universe is extremely kind. The internet is extremely kind. It definitely is abundant, and it gives you all the wealth that you need. And that's my last comment on this show.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. There you have it. Thank you for joining us and for being part of our journey here on Yeukai Business Show. We certainly know and believe that the best is yet to come. Together, we can conquer any situation, be it in business, in life, or whatever that may come against us. So I want to encourage you to stay close, collaborate, and if you've got any question, reach out to somebody within the community and we'll be happy to support you. With that said, have a good day or good evening wherever you're joining us from, and goodbye.
Thank you for listening to Yeukai Business Show. We will be back to bring you more episodes with success stories and advice straight from the experts. Want more? Check out www.yukaibusinessshow.com. Get your free trial of our virtual assistant service today. Just visit www.worldoutsourcingsolutions.com. Quote WOS18 or send us an email at support@worldoutsourcingsolutions.com.